Erev Tov, everyone. Erev Tov. Good to have you all here. It is Monday night. It is 8 p.m. here on the east side of the United States, here in the diaspora. This is the House of Seven Beggars. Therefore, it must be Zeyde Story Corner, of course. Yeah, Zeyde Story Corner, of course. Okay, so we are going to be continuing with the book, The Tales of Rabbi Nachman. That's Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. And the story we were reading is the Master of Prayer. That's right, the Master of Prayer. Okay. And so we have, let's check and see what we have in the chat room. We have Donald, we have Shoshi, probably Shlomo along with her, Veronica, Marshall, and Miriam, and Guy, and a few watching in the background. Yeah, always a few watching in the background. So we're glad you're all here, whether you're in the chat room or not. So new chair. Yes, new chair. Yeah, so he's quite comfortable. Yeah, well, you don't have to jump on the chair, but it's not a good idea. But yes, it is a very comfortable chair, and it's just going to take. We have to adjust cameras and stuff because the chair sits a little higher, and what it is comfortable on my tuchus. Yeah, okay, well, good. I'm very glad to hear that. So anyway, as we have been doing on our broadcast, we are featuring one of Rabbi Moshe Steinerman's books on each one of our broadcasts. And this week, we are featuring Lom Leyom, Day by Day. This is from Rabbi Moshe Steinerman's I Love Torah series, which he is making available on Amazon for everyone at cost. And $7. Yeah, it's like $7 a book. And it's a very good price, especially considering what you're actually getting from it. You can also, if you can't afford the book, there's also the option to get it on the Kindle for like 99 cents. So you could have the entire library for like $13. Yeah, like $13. And if you haven't seen Rabbi Steinerman's, go to Amazon and just put in I Love Torah series, and that'll get you to all the books. And if you have the chance, go to Rabbi Steinerman's website, which I thought was on the book, but evidently it isn't. He does a lot of videos and stuff like that. Motorcycle rides. Yeah, he does, as he's going to the Kotel and other places when he is on his motorcycle, and he has his camera going, which is always a very interesting ride when you're riding through Jerusalem. And if you are like from Canada or the United States, it would actually shock you. Yeah, they drive crazy. Yeah, it does seem that they really drive crazy there, weaving in and out of traffic and so on and so forth. But that's the way they do it there. I've told Rabbi Steinerman several times, if we drove like that here in the United States, we get our license taken away from us. And he says that's just the way they drive over there. So, okay. So we will be showing that book again after the break. But let us get on to the. Did we miss? Oh, Kelsey. Kelsey is here. Okay, I almost missed you, Kelsey Lynn. Okay, so give me my camera. Yes, I will get you on your camera. And let me turn off this camera. And we'll turn on this camera. And there I am. Okay, let me get in the center of the shot here. Okay, maybe a little more. Yeah, that looks good, I think. Okay. Still needs some adjustment. Yeah, I know, I know. We're going to have to figure out the camera angles and stuff like that so we get a good shot and everything. So, this will work for tonight. Yeah, okay. So, we're going to, well, you take it. Yeah, we are going to continue with our story, The Master of Prayer. Okay. So, we're going to back up a few paragraphs just to remind everybody where we were at and to remind them of the story so far. Okay, so the measure of everything was money, and the importance and rank of every individual was determined by his wealth. A man who possessed so many thousands or millions was accorded a certain rank, and another who owned a different sum of money was of another rank, and so on and so forth. And he who possessed so and so many millions was king. How about that, huh? They also had flags. Well, of course, if you have to have money, you have to have flags, right? Okay, if someone possessed such and such a sum and was of such and such a rank, he was entitled to a special flag. Another who possessed a different sum and was of a different rank had another flag. It was clearly laid down how much money a person must possess in order to be of a particular rank and to have a particular flag. So, there you go. Okay, if a citizen of that country possessed no more than a certain sum of money, he was considered to be an ordinary human being. However, if he had less than that sum, he was held to be a beast or a bird in human form. There were various beasts and birds. One who possessed a certain small sum of money was a lion. What? A lion. You had to be poor to be a lion? I don't buy that for a minute. Okay, well, anyway, let's forget about the commentary and let's go on with the story. Okay, we go on. That is a human lion. And one who possessed even less was some kind of bird. In any event, a man with little money was not considered to be a human being. It became known in the world that such a country existed. The master of prayer sighed and said, "Ah, who knows how much further this folly may lead them astray?" Some of his followers heard him and, without asking about it, decided to go to the country of wealth. They felt great pity for the people who had strayed so far in their lust for money, especially since the Master of Prayer had said that those people might sink even deeper into error. God forbid. So, they went there in hope that they would be able to turn the people back from their ways. On reaching the country, they entered the house of one of the poorest people, a man who was considered to be a beast, and they began to converse with him. Wealth is not the highest value, they said, for the true purpose of life is to worship God. But the man took no heed to what they were saying, for the error was so deeply rooted in his heart. So they went to another, and repeated what they had said to the first. He too would not listen. And when they persisted, he said, I have no time to talk with you. Why? Asked the followers. Because we are preparing to leave this country to go to another. Since we consider wealth to be the highest goal, we are moving to a country where money is made, where the soil contains ores of gold and silver. The people of this country had also decided to appoint among themselves stars and constellations. Whoever possessed such and such a sum of money was considered to have the power of a star. They believe that it was the influence of the stars that made gold grow in the earth. And so if a man was very rich, he must possess the same powers as did the stars. In other words, he was a star himself. Furthermore, if a man possessed even greater wealth than a star, he was regarded as an entire constellation of stars. They also appointed angels, all according to wealth. And finally, they agreed that they should have gods too. Whoever possessed a certain immense sum of money, thousands of millions, must surely be a god. They said that if God had bestowed so much wealth upon him, he must surely be a god himself. God forbid. The people of the country of wealth also decided that it was not fitting that they should live in the air of this world, nor should they mix with other inhabitants of the world who were unclean, lest they become defiled by them. So they decided to seek out higher mountains, the very highest in the world. There they would settle, and there they would live above the air of the world. So they sent out scouts, who discovered very high mountains, and they all went to live there. A different group settled on one peak, on each of the peaks. They built great fortifications and earthworks around each mountain so that no one could approach them. There was a single secret passage leading up to each mountain top, and no stranger could ever find it. They also placed watchmen at some distance from each mountain so that no stranger could approach them. And there they lived, observing their strange customs. And they had many gods, that is, gods according to wealth. Since they valued money above all, They lived in perpetual fear of murder and robbery. After all, who would not become a criminal if by stealing money he could become a god? On the other hand, they thought that a god, that is, someone who possessed great wealth, would be able to protect himself. Huh? What do you think of that, huh? They instituted rituals and sacrifices and prayers to these gods. They offered up human sacrifices, and people even sacrificed themselves in order to become one with the gods. Imagine that. Hoping that thus they would be reborn as rich men. Nevertheless, the country was plagued by murder and robbery. For whoever did not believe in the efficacy of the rituals became a murderer and a robber in order to get more money. Money buys everything, they maintained: food, clothing. The essentials of life are all acquired by means of money. That was why money was their religion. They made great efforts to ensure that they would never be without money. And they began to import wealth into their country. Merchants went out to trade in other lands and brought their profits home. Charity was, of course, a great sin. For who would be so wicked as to give away the money that God had bestowed upon him? They also appointed officials whose task it was to ascertain whether each person had as much money as he declared. Everyone had to make regular statements of his wealth in order to retain his rank. When a rich person lost his money, he was demoted from the rank of man to that of animal. And when a poor man became rich, he was promoted from animal to man. And so with all the ranks. They kept icons and portraits of their gods, that is, of men who possessed great wealth. Everyone kept such icons, which they fondled and kissed, for money was their sole object of worship and religion. When the followers returned to their scheduled spot, they told the master a prayer about the great folly of the country of wealth, how the people there had been led astray by their lust for money, and how some wanted to leave their own country for another where they would be able to make gold. The master of prayer declared that he feared that the people of that country would fall even further into greater folly. When he heard that they had appointed their own gods, he said, "That's just what I thought would happen. That's just what I feared." The master of prayer was very sorry for them, and he decided to go to that country in the hope that he would be able to turn them from their folly. When he arrived, he spoke to a watchman who was stationed around each of the mountains. These were obviously poor people of low status, for the rich who had attained higher rank refused to come in contact with ordinary humans, nor would they come down to the air of the world for fear of pollution. They would not even talk with the people from the outside world, lest they be defiled by the breath of their mouths. So, the watchmen who were stationed below the city were of low rank, but they too kept icons of their gods, for even they believed in the religion of money. The master of prayer spoke to one of the watchmen about the true purpose of life, which he explained was the worship of God through Torah, prayer, and good deeds. They said that money was pure folly. He said that money was pure folly. The watchman took no heed of what he said. So deeply rooted was his belief in money. The master of prayer then approached another watchman and spoke with them in the same way, but none of them listened. The master of prayer decided to go up to the city on the mountain. People were amazed to see him there. "How did you get in?" they asked him, for no outsider could enter. "Why do you ask?" he answered. "It's enough that I am here." Then he began to talk with one of them about the true purpose of life, declaring in his usual way that money was pure folly. The person took no heed of his words. And so it was with the next and the next. They had all sunk so deep into their folly that they would consider nothing else. The people of the city were astonished that there was a man among them saying such things that were so completely opposite to their religion. They had heard of the master of prayer, for his activities were already well known, and they realized that this must be he. But they could not catch him, because he appeared to each in a different guise, and he quickly left the city. Now, in those days, there was a warrior around whom he gathered a band of fighting men. They went around the world conquering countries. The warrior insisted that all countries in the world submit themselves to him, but he sought nothing else. If a country did not surrender, it suffered no injury, but if it resisted, it was destroyed. The warrior was not interested in money. He only wanted people to accept his rule. When he was at a distance of some 50 miles from the country, he would dispatch a group of his men to demand its surrender. In this way, he conquered one country after another. When the merchants of the country of wealth returned from their travels, they told the people about the warrior. The whole country was terrified. Although they wanted to surrender, they could not, for they had heard that the warrior dispensed money and wanted none of it. To surrender to such a man who rejected their religion would be apostasy. In their great fear, the people started performing their religious rites, offering up animals, that is, men who had little money, as sacrifices to their gods, men who had much money. Meanwhile, the warrior came near to the country and, as was his custom, sent a group of men to demand its surrender. The people were dreadfully frightened and did not know what to do. Then their merchants made a suggestion. In their travels, they had heard about a country, all of whose inhabitants were gods who rode in carriages drawn by angels. That is, everyone there was so immensely wealthy that even the humblest of them would be considered a god in the country of wealth. Even their horses were bedecked with enough gold and other precious metals to make one an angel in the country of wealth. So, in effect, their carriages were drawn by angels. They harnessed up 3 pair of angels and ride off with them, related the merchants. They will be able to help us, for they are all gods. This advice pleased the people. They were certain that assistance would come from a country that was populated by gods. The master of prayer decided to return to the country of wealth in hope that he might still be able to turn the people from their folly. When he arrived, he approached one of the watchmen and began to talk to him in his usual manner. The watchman told him about the warrior of whom they were so terrified. And here is where we are going to take our break. Okay, so we take our break, and then we come back, and we find out more about this warrior, eh? Okay, so everybody stay tuned. We'll be back in 6.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
It's intermission time, folks, so hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right over to our refreshment center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, mouth-watering goodies, everything from a snack to a delicious full meal. At our refreshment center, you'll find a large variety of goodies to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, or your sweet tooth. So hurry, hurry, hurry. Visit our refreshment center now. The show starts in 5 minutes. The show starts in 4 minutes. The show starts in 3 minutes. The show starts in 2 minutes. The show starts in 1 minute. now, on with the show.
And we are back. You know, I think that camera is a bit close. Yeah, I think you're right. But we fix it later. Okay. We will do that. We will have to fix that later. Okay, so we get back to the story. Oh, and before we forget, we are going to feature Rabbi Moshe Steinerman's Yom LeYom, Day by Day, part of the Rabbi Moshe Steinerman I Love Torah series, which you can get on Amazon for a very good price. Okay, so now we get back to the story, okay? Okay. Oh, I see. Simon has joined us. Simon in the house. So I didn't see you earlier. Okay. So, we go back and we find out what they are going to do about the warrior, eh? Okay. So, what do you intend to do? Asked the master of prayer. The watchman answered that they were going to send for help to the country that was inhabited by gods. The master of prayer laughed heartily at his words. That is utter nonsense, he said. They are merely men like us. All of you, including your gods, are no more than men, and no man is a god. There is only one God over the world, He who created all. One must worship Him alone and pray only to Him. This is the true and only purpose of life. The master of prayer continued talking in this way, but for a long time the watchman refused to listen, for the folly was deeply rooted in his heart. But the master of prayer persisted. Eventually, the watchman said, But what can I do? I am one, and they are many. This encouraged the master of prayer, for he realized that his earlier conversation with the same watchman and what he had just said were beginning to make an impression. He went on to another watchman and spoke to him in this same way. This watchman too refused to listen, but finally he answered, But I am one, and they are many. Eventually, all the watchmen gave the same answer. Then the master of prayer went up to the city. He told the people that they were all in great error, and that money was not the aim of life, but that the true and only purpose of life was to occupy oneself with Torah and prayer. They too did not want to listen to him, so deeply rooted among them was the worship of money. They told him of the warrior and how they intended to send for help to the country inhabited by gods. He laughed and told them that their plan was folly. They won't be able to help you at all, he told them, for you are merely men, and they are merely men, not gods. There is only one God, blessed be He. But he said, as though talking to himself, Can this be the warrior? He went from one person to another, speaking to them all in the same way. And of the warrior he said to each, "Can this be the warrior?" No one knew what he meant by this. Meanwhile, the presence in the city of a man who mocked their religion and said that there was only one God, and who said that perhaps he knew the warrior, was creating a great stir. People realized that he must surely be the famous master of prayer. An order was given to seek him out and seize him. He continued to use his different disguises, but they are already known, and finally he was caught. The master of prayer was brought before the elders, and they began to talk to him. He spoke to them in the same way as he had to the others. You are all in error, and you have strayed into great folly. Money is not the true purpose of life. There is only one God, blessed be his name, who has created all, and one must worship him alone. Money is a folly, and nothing more. And as for that country you say is inhabited by gods, you will get no help from them, for they are not gods, but men, as you are. They thought he was mad, for anyone who did not accept their folly seemed to them to be mad. Why do you keep saying, "Can this be the warrior?" they asked. I was once in the service of a king, he answered. And it happened that one day the king's warrior was lost. If this is the same warrior, I know him. Furthermore, putting your trust in the country you claim is inhabited by gods is folly. They will not be able to help you. On the contrary, putting your trust in them will bring about your downfall. How do you know all this? They asked him. The king I served had an image of a hand, he answered. The hand had 5 fingers, and on it were etched all the lines and creases found in the palm of the hand. This hand was, in fact, a map of all the worlds. On it was marked all that had been since heaven and earth were created, and all that will be until the end of time. Everything in the world was marked on it, down to the last detail in its lines and creases. It was like a map. And just as on a map there are letters by each mark to show that here is this city and there is that stream, so in the creases of the hand there were special symbols. Every country and city, every stream and river and mountain in this world and in all the worlds was marked out in the creases and lines. In the same way, each person in every country and all the events of their lives were marked on the hand. All the paths from one country to another, and from one place to another were shown. That is how I knew how to enter this city, whose fortifications no man can pass. Were you to send me from this city to another, I would know the way. And just as the hand showed the path between one city and another, it also marked those between the various worlds and those between heaven and earth. Eliyahu went up to heaven by one route, and it was marked there. Moshe Rabbeinu went up by another, and it too was marked. Enoch ascended by yet another, and that too was marked. Furthermore, everything was engraved on the hand as it was when the world was created, as it is now, and as it will be. Thus, the city of Sodom appeared as it was before it was destroyed. While it was being destroyed, and after its destruction, everything that ever was, is now, and ever will be, was engraved on the hand. And on the hand I saw that the country whose people you say are all gods will be overthrown. The people were amazed. What he was saying appeared to be true, for they knew all things appeared on a map of the world, and the lines of the hand looked like letters. Furthermore, no man could invent such a story. Where is this king? They asked the master of prayer. Perhaps he will show us a way to find money. What do you still want with money? He asked them in amazement. Don't even speak of money. Nevertheless, tell us where the king is, they begged him. I do not know where the king is, he answered. This is what happened. Once there were a king and a queen, and they had an only daughter. When the time came for her to be wed, the king called a meeting of all his counselors, that they should advise him which man should be her husband. I too was one of the counselors, for the king loved me. I suggested that she be given to the warrior, for he had been of great help to us, and he had conquered many countries. It seemed fitting that the king's daughter be given to him as his wife. My advice was favored, and all agreed on it. There was great rejoicing at the court that a husband had been found for the king's daughter, and they were wed. Now, the king's daughter bore a child. A child was wondrously beautiful. His beauty surpassed that of any mortal. His hair was of gold, and it shone with every color. His countenance was like the sun, and his eyes shone like the other heavenly lights. As soon as he was born, it was obvious that the child possessed great wisdom. When he heard people talking, he knew when to laugh and when to cry. It was plain that he understood what was being said, even though he did not yet know how to talk. There was a bard in the king's court, a master of rhetoric and verse. He knew how to speak very beautifully, and he composed exquisite speeches, verses, and praises for the king. This bard was very talented by nature, but the king showed him the source of his art, where he could obtain the power of speech, and he became a most wonderful bard. There was a sage, too, at the king's court. This sage was very wise by nature, but the king showed him where he could obtain wisdom, and he became even wiser. The warrior, too, was strong by nature, but the king showed him where to obtain power, and he became a great and terrible warrior. There is a sword that hangs in midair. This sword possesses three kinds of power. When it is raised, all the commanders of the opposing army run away, and the enemy, of course, defeated. For there is no one left to conduct the war. But if the soldiers still desire to fight, the sword has two edges, and each of these has its own special power. One makes all the soldiers fall, and the other smites them with a withering of the flesh. May God protect us from it. A thrust of the sword with one edge or the other is all that is necessary to subdue the enemy. The king showed the warrior the way to the sword, and from there he derived his great might. The king also showed me the source of power from which I derive what I need. And there, my dear friends, is where we are going to stop for this evening. We got another cliffhanger just for Donald. Okay. So I see Roger has joined us also. Roger, sorry I didn't see you earlier. Okay. So I want to thank you for being here tonight. Next week we get a better shot on the camera, huh? Okay. So don't forget, Wednesday night is the Torah study with Rabbi A and Rabbi Reuben. And on Friday night is Kabbalat and Mariv the Shabbat. And Shabbat morning at 10 a.m. is the Shacharit and Musaf service. Okay, this is a Mevachim and Shekalim and all the others. Okay, so glad to have you all here this evening. Until the next time, my dear friends, we say Laila Tov.